So the time has come where we can talk in more detail about F1 25. Earlier this month, I got invited down to EA Studios in Birmingham, where I got to try out F1 25. I tried a range of things from my team to Breaking Point, driving in reverse direction, testing out the handling model, and a whole bunch of other things. I played on the controller, I played on the wheel, I played many different variations or game modes within the game, so I have a pretty good idea of what we're in for with this year's game, and I want to bring you guys some of my thoughts, as well as lining up with the embargo lifting on a number of key areas. So let's dive into those. Some of those that we're going to be talking about today are the decal editor, which you have available in my team, handling improvements, AI, graphic improvements, the LiDAR updated tracks that they're talking about in the deep dive, multiplayer changes, and just generic quickfire changes. And there's also some things in there which they haven't mentioned in that deep dive, which I want to really highlight and go into detail with, and even some things in the handling which they've made in a blog post, things that I felt that they've changed, but they haven't really bothered to talk about that, which I find to be interesting. So there's a lot more beneath the surface than what we realize. There are also many things that I wish they brought to the game with my team this year that they haven't. So we've got some good things to talk about. We've got some not so good things to talk about. Let's get into it. So I had 3 hours to play F1 25, 1 hour in my team, 1 hour in Breaking Point, and 1 hour in Time Trial and the other modes. My 1 hour of my team was mostly spent literally customizing the car and going in depth with all the inner workings of the menus of creating and running your own F1 team. And one of those was in the decal editor. So let me break this down for you. There are many different components of where you can customize and place your new decals on this year's game. You now have control of placement of where you put the car, the sizing of the decal, rotating the decal, variations of the decal. In fact, there are about 6 variations of any given decal in terms of color and background and like appearance of the decal itself. Then it comes to actually where you place the decal as well. And, you have pretty much full control over the entire Formula One car of where you can place decals now in and amongst or around the livery to really highlight those decals. So let's break this down for you. We have side left, side right, each of which have 10 decals each that you can place in those sections. Halo inside, halo left, halo right, halo top, nose left, nose right, front wing top, front wing left and right, rear wing top, rear wing underneath, rear wing left, and rear wing right. Now, all of those different sections of the F1 car that I just mentioned have between 3 and 10 decal slots, depending on the size. I think only the sides of the car have 10 decal slots each. But the other parts of the car have between 3 and 6, depending on the size, like I mentioned. I counted up all of the decal slots you can do on the F1 car if you counted all of them up, and I counted 82 different decals. Now, in my mind, that is a lot more decals than what you can put on the My Team car in previous years. So that is a massive plus. To go with that as well, we now can customize the font and the appearance of the numbers on the car. Not only that, we can change the color and individualize the number that appears on the nose from the side of the car. So we can have like a yellow number in one font on the front nose, and then we can have like a red number on the side of the car in a completely different font to suit each section of the car if you see fit. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have many changes to sponsors on the driver clothing. So like the suits, the gloves, the helmets, that wasn't really highlighted in any of the material I've seen so far for F1 25. I didn't really go into it on the game, unfortunately. I think that is largely the same. So if they don't highlight it, generally it hasn't changed, which is a real shame because helmet customization is something we should have got last year with the driver career. We haven't got it this year either with the new My Team changes. So that is a big disappointment. And I'll talk about that again in length later on at some point. But let's move on to some of the areas that weren't touched upon too much with this year's or this week's deep dive, and that's handling. I think for this section, I think it's important to come over to the blog where they go pretty in detail about a lot of the changes that they made with the handling. And then I'll sprinkle in some of my overall thoughts and opinions as well as we go through here. So we're going to start with controls. People on the controller will notice that the track conditions and the car's unique dynamics will give a more intuitive feel to steering, allowing you to better understand the limits of grip. They've also tuned the steering rate for a more consistent feel at all car speeds. What that tells me is that they've probably slowed down the sensitivity of the change of direction when you're operating the, what do they call that? the joystick. Oh my God. The joystick. For wheel users, force feedback settings have been reviewed across a wide range of wheel models with a goal of more authentic feel. Consistently, the F1 games have gotten better every year with force feedback. That is one thing that I can't fault them on. Force feedback gets better and better every year. You go back and play the old F1 games to see how much the force feedback has improved. More specifically, improvements have been made for more informative aligning torque and changes that better communicate oversteer breakaway when racing. This is one of my key takeaways from F1 25. Sliding feels much more intuitive, more natural, and dare I say it, more satisfying than what it was on F1 24. 24, you get into a slide, and there would be so much friction applied to the car, it would bring it to a dead stop if you slid for long enough, to the point where if you have a low speed kind of like oversteer moment, wheel spin, it just felt like you were going nowhere. That's not the case so much on F1 25. The slides are a bit more, I don't want to say catchable, but like, you just like lose a little bit less momentum, and that feels nice. On the contrary to that, on the sliding, if you go into a full-on spin, you're going into a wall. There's a lot less friction, like I mentioned, meaning that if you slide for long enough, you'll find yourself getting in trouble. So I think that it's kind of more punishing on one end if you go way beyond the limit, but less punishing in terms of lap time when you do slides. So from a realism point of view, it's closer to that on both fronts, and that is a good thing. Apparently, traction control has better stability and less restrictive driving for those assist users, so good for them. Tires have had a lot of work done to them, including adjustments to tire loads and tire slip model, particularly in time trial. Rapid steering inputs, such as techniques relying on flicking, Formula Krim, I'm looking at you, buddy, will be less effective on race days, as a more aggressive driving style will result in overheating the tires and faster wear. Thank you. That is such a blight on this year's game. Now, I've actually gone back and I'm refilming some of this section because I fell into the trap of, I think, reading too much of the blog post. And I don't want this to be like a reaction to the blog post kind of video. I want this to be about the gameplay. But I will touch upon a few more things which were mentioned in that blog post. Just some of the details that I think you guys need to know. They've changed some of the wear rates in the shorter races, more specifically 50% races, to allow for more of a variation between 1 and 2 stop races. So this is a huge positive, and I think this is going to completely change the dynamic of league racing and career modes at those shorter distances. So my educated guess is that they're going to nerf the hard compound tire and not make it as strong as what it was on 24. So that is something I'm looking forward to. Unfortunately, on my end, that is something I didn't get to test, doing even a longer race than 5 laps. So that's something we'll have to try at a later date. But the fact that they've listened to the community on this front is a massive plus, and I'm looking forward to them bringing that to the forefront. As well as that, it appears that they've changed how the tires react to different ground material types, different surfaces like grass, gravel, even grip level tweaks to real-world race data have been changed to, for example, things like street circuits are now going to offer less grip than traditional circuits. I hope that this means even on a more advanced level, tracks like Bahrain that have more of an abrasive surface are harsher to the tires. Bahrain is already a pretty harsh surface track anyway, so I'm looking forward to testing that out and see how that applies in longer form races. But the general direction that it seems that EA and Codemasters are going down appears to be one of more realism and one that has more complexity beneath the surface. So these changes are all very positive for me. Right then, so my initial impressions of the handling so far on 25, and take this with a pinch of salt because I'm playing on Codemasters rigs with their wheel settings, their pedals, default setups. I'm not at my home setup and I'm not running proper setups. So that all those things combined can give a very different experience to what we're all going to get at home. So bear that in mind. With that said, I feel like the default setup felt really nice. Like I could push on it. It gave good confidence, good rotation, oddly. So maybe there's less difference now between default setup and proper good setups compared to previous games. So that is a good positive. The front grip seems quite strong on 25. The grip was very strong at the start of 24. But there are elements of understeer to the handling model as well. I'd say those understeer moments come out when you go to low speed corners. Can feel a little bit clumsy at times, hard to get the nose in at times. But again, this is not running optimal settings and things like that. The sliding is definitely more prominent. If you go over the limit, past the point of saving it, you're going to be sliding for a long time and killing the tires. Things like curbs seem to affect the car a little bit less. I'm thinking of Suzuka Sector 1, where if you would touch some of those high-speed curbs, it would be a bit of a death sentence. Whereas on 25, you seem to be able to run over curbs and it doesn't really affect the car too much. On the effect of like, yeah, those curbs and bumps seem to affect the car a little bit less. I'm thinking of Silverstone down the Wellington Straight. There was an array of massive bumps on the last year's game, but on 25 you can run over that same area of the track and it doesn't bottom out the car. I feel like, yeah, there's maybe even less character of bumps and curbs, and the floor is less sensitive to bottoming out, to stalling the aero and completely spinning out. There are certain circumstances on 24 where I'd go through like the middle sector chicane of Spain, and if I pushed too hard and got on the power too early, the bottom of the car or the rear would completely stall and you'd spin out. It would be really weird. So in a sense, there's almost a little bit more predictability. There's a little bit more trust with the aero platform, if that makes sense. But yeah, again, a lot of these things might change when I put really aggressive setups on. When we put on setups with really low ride height, maybe the car will start stalling again. Oversteer will be crazy, and who knows. But those are at least my initial impressions of the game. I think people picking up the game and just running on a default setup will feel actually quite positive. That the first impression you will have with 25 will be quite positive. I will definitely say that. It's definitely pick up and play, and you won't feel completely alienated from the connection the car has to the roads. That in itself is quite a good experience. The throttle mapping has been revised for smoother torque response, especially at low speeds. Plus, ERS has been recalibrated for deploy rates to allow for more strategic harvesting at high speeds. So, speaking to the developers, what that means is you don't have to double shift to activate harvesting when you go into none modes. Basically, as soon as you go into none modes, it starts recovering energy at that point. So the system didn't work properly before. Now it works properly as soon as you switch the modes. When it comes to aero, our slipstream model has been adjusted for improved racing. You're more likely to experience the effects of dirty air this year compared to F1 24. The accuracy of ride height and yaw effects has been adapted based on real-world CFD and wind tunnel data. This will hopefully negate having massive DRS trains in competitive races, in career mode races, and we'll touch upon that in a second with the AI. But what does this mean for multiplayer? Hopefully this will now mean that faster players can actually be rewarded for being fast and at the front of the field, and that, actually following someone, there's going to be some kind of a negative effect. If dirty air is implemented properly, then we should see some, I guess, accelerated tire wear from being in dirty air, because you'll be sliding when you're trapped behind another car through a high-speed corner, for example. Let's move on to the AI enhancements. Unfortunately, I didn't get to race the AI very much in my time. I got to race them a little bit in Breaking Point. on a controller, but it's not the same. So we're gonna have to rely on this article to tell us what's going on. So according to this, they've got some people in, highly skilled players, to test the AI and tune them to better reflect overtaking capabilities with one another when racing players. I was not involved in those races or that testing, so I wonder who they got in to do that. Probably esports drivers, potentially. Other adjustments have been made, such as AI being more likely to pull off defensive maneuvers when protecting a position. Furthermore, you may notice trains. Just like in the real sport, the AI will better make tactical decisions as to when to deploy DRS and ERS. I'm hoping that they are a little bit more imperfect. I think that's probably their problem. They all seem to do the same thing. And when they do the same thing, they all stay together. They all burn battery on the same lap. They all run out of battery on the last lap. They all seem to make very similar decisions with lines, with, you know, gear choices. I want to see more mistakes from the AI. I want to see them deploy all of their battery one lap to try and get past someone or someone else. And I just want to see a bit more variance there, a bit more chaos. It's all a bit too uniform. And, you know, this has been a problem for many, many years. You know, it's a weird one, the AI. Like, on 23, they were pretty good. Still not perfect, but it's never quite the same as racing a player. And the most frustrating thing for me when you're racing AI is when they're quicker than you just can't beat them. There needs to be, yeah, that element of surprise or mistakes where, you know, they may not optimally get something right, and that gives you a chance. The way that they achieve lap time from the AI is also very frustrating. They've not touched upon that here. But in order to make you know, AI race with some of the best players, they make the AI have lighter cars than us. There are other ways to extract performance from the AI. I wish they would utilize, like maybe utilizing a bit more of the track, changing the gears that they use out of corners. They always seem to have, you know, the perfect amount of tire temperature. That's something as well, which doesn't look like has been addressed here. No, it hasn't been addressed here. So when it comes to imperfect position conditions, when the track is changing, when the tires are going off, you know, the AI are massively OP in those scenarios. So I'd like to see the AI run more realistic setups to what we're running, so they can get the lap time performance out of that. I'd like to see them dive bomb us a little bit more instead of making the cars lighter. Maybe give them more stopping power, because, you know, the best way to defend against the AI is just to stay on the racing line and never make a mistake. You can go 5 seconds a lap, 10 seconds a lap slower, but if you stay on the racing line and have decent straight line speeds, they're not going to overtake you in the corner. These are some of the key areas where the AI just have their weaknesses. If you know how to beat the AI, if you just, you know, get your nose up the inside of them, they'll give you space. Sometimes I want them to turn across you, or to make mistakes, or even outbrake themselves, and just have a bit more of a roughness to them. It looks like they're going to go more defensive. It looks like they might fight you a little bit more if you're still running side by side. So that's a positive change, but there are still a lot of areas where AI can be improved. And this article right here has not convinced me. Not convinced me. It might be years before they perfect it, but this is a start. This is a start. We'll see how they go. There are a lot of different reasons for why the AI were bad last year, and a lot of those were down to the handling model having to be changed and retraining the AI, and I think the AI was a bit rushed last year, so the AI should be miles better than what it was on 24, but we'll see. Here's a few quick fire changes. You can pause the video and have a look at those. Most notably, better pickup from off-track surfaces is more visually pronounced with the tires. That's nice. Podium sequences reworked. My team, the engine sound your car matches the supplier that you choose. Some of the rule changes have been added from the 2025 season, such as the mandatory two-stop rule for Monaco and the removal of the point for fastest lap. I'm quite keen to see how this is implemented in a 50% race. This is going to really spice up Monaco, for example, and this is going to apply everywhere. So now I think we're going to be doing like a two-stop and a 25% race in online. Where a pit stop is mandatory, you now have to do a two-stop race. So that's going to be quite amazing for those shorter races at Monaco. So I'm very much looking forward to that and how that's going to change the dynamic of things. Let's talk about tracks then. We had some upgrades to the LiDAR technology used with tracks at Bahrain, Miami, Melbourne, Suzuka, and Imola. I tried F1 25 at a really interesting time in November last year, at a point where the tracks were kind of half done, and I could see the references for where the new areas of the track had been changed while still driving on some of the older framework of the track. So I'm not sure I was supposed to do that, but I was in driving that. I was able to see how much things have changed and moved around, and it really is more than just some of the outside surfaces that you see around the track. Some of the profiling of some of the corners have changed, the angle, the width, the length even sometimes, and it does feel a lot nicer on some of those newer tracks that we've driven on. So, you know, they touched upon it in the deep dive, but a lot of the exterior surfaces, buildings, trees have changed. Things like cherry blossoms being visible around Suzuka is a real like nice authenticity thing, which is really, really cool. On the subject of tracks, we can now race in the reverse direction around 3 tracks. That is Silverstone, Zandvoort, and Austria. I was able to play some of those tracks in reverse direction, and it was really good fun. It is so much more than just, you know, the start lights and the starting grid in the other direction. You have to change so much more when it comes to making reverse racing possible. You have to change all the pit stalls. You have to change all the marshalling points. You have to make sure the track limits are fine. You have to retrain the AI to go around those places. All the braking boards. You might even have to change some ripple strips and things like that. There's a lot that goes into that. And in my time driving, it was so much fun to have a proper go around some of these tracks. One of the first ones I did was Austria. I really locked into Austria, and it was just so much fun. It gives us an entirely new circuit without having to create an entirely new circuit. One final thing to touch on before I give my closing statements is they touched upon the graphics a lot. They've made some overhauls to the lighting, to the shadows, circuits overall, according to this. An emerging PC exclusive called Path Tracing has now been introduced. I guess it's an expansion upon ray tracing. Basically, Path Tracing is creating extra light sources or reflections based on light bouncing off other things around the circuit. So you might have the sun like hit like a puddle, then you can have the puddle reflect that sunlight into another area, and like it can kind of bounce around a little bit. Same too with like other lighting effects like LEDs and stuff like that. So that's cool, but the vast majority of us probably aren't going to run that. Now this is an interesting one, at least on the face of it. When they spoke about this in the reveal of F1 25, they spoke about invitationals, a brand new collaborative mode, which meant more ways to collaborate in multiplayer. I was looking forward to a whole raft of changes to multiplayer, things that would add to the overall spectacle and the longevity of multiplayer. Unfortunately, this hasn't turned out the way that I hoped it would. This is a special multiplayer event that opens up through F1 World. Yes, they're still trying to push F1 World on us. I don't think I'll really touch this. It's basically a mode where you jump in, you share access to someone else, and they jump in with the events, and you work together to complete the objective, earning rewards, blah, blah, blah. Don't really care that much. One thing that they have improved, which is nice, we've made some changes to promote teamwork and encourage respectful racing through an updated Driver of the Day system. Accomplishments such as cleanest driver and most overtakes will be highlighted. This is one small step in the right direction to improving player attitudes and getting people to care about their conduct on track and, I guess, progress towards something. I've still been calling for years to have a proper leaderboard where we can see how many race wins you've got, how many overtakes you've done throughout your whole like career of playing in online, how many crashes you've had, and just being able to compare those easily like you can in like Rocket League, for example. Having like comparable stats is such a quality of life addition to like multiplayer frameworks. And it's a shame that that's not been introduced, and instead they're working on things like F1 World Invitationals, which are not going to get touched. We've got a small section on audio as well. We can now have driver radio through things like qualifying. If we get pole position, we'll have the drivers address race engineers. They'll digress with them a little bit. We can now have team principals talk to us at certain points as well, depending on the scenario, what we've done, what we haven't done, etc. Naomi Schiff has been added to the roster of experts who feature throughout the game. So she'll be adding to the broadcast experience. I saw that they also did some new lines with Mark Priestley, the engineer. So hopefully that means that there's new radio in that sense in a lot of different scenarios. I think, you know, one of the biggest disappointments with Jeff getting replaced and Mark Priestley coming in is that they filmed the exact same lines that Jeff had. What I really want to see is new VO, like variations of VO, so it's not the same every time and it doesn't feel so repetitive. So I'm hoping that they've done a little bit of that to make it feel a little bit more fresh. That's always really nice. But yeah, I mean, that in general is the general gist of F1 25. And I guess in summary, there's a lot of, like, on the surface, nice changes here. A lot more than, you know, F1 24. We're getting a new My Team mode. We're getting braking point. We're getting reverse direction tracks. We're getting more enhancements to audio and graphics and handling, especially. I think it gets underappreciated how much the handling changes every year. People always say, oh, it's the same game, blah, blah, blah. But they do change a lot when it comes to the handling and eventually getting things right with that. But there are some things that they don't do, that they don't improve. Like a lot of the changes with this year's game appears to be like in menus when it comes to the My Team stuff. I feel like they could always do more when it comes to addressing the on-track gameplay and how things work there. You know, a lot of the changes that I've just spoken about, they will affect the on-track stuff, but I guess, to summarize, I haven't really been blown away by a lot of the features that have been introduced. A lot of them are impressive, yes, and as a total, we're getting a much better F1 game this year, but there's no groundbreaking, crazy new feature that we haven't seen before. You know, we've still got the same limitations when it comes to safety cars and red flags. You know, we can't have lap cars unlap themselves. We can't start from the pit lane like you can in F1 Manager. F1 Manager, in their short lifespan, has come in and really shook up the F1 space, and it has forced Codemasters and EA to kind of wake up and introduce some things, but they haven't gone fully there yet. That's what I want to see. I want to see something new and groundbreaking. I was hoping we were going to get that this year. There's a lot of, like, nice quality of life stuff, but I don't think we're getting anything completely groundbreaking until 26. Is that enough? I guess that's a question we have to ask ourselves. Is that enough to warrant purchase of this year's F1 game? I think what I was really looking forward to when I first heard that My Team was getting an overhaul was something completely game-changing, like being able to change or customize the appearance of car parts that you have. That's a huge part of creating new upgrades and machining and fabricating those parts, is bringing low downforce, medium downforce, high downforce nose aero developments to specific racetracks. It is such a part and parcel of F1. You know, do you bring a medium downforce package? Do you bring a low downforce package? High downforce package? All of the front wings and floors and noses and steering wheels even are all just the same for every team, for every car, every person that's going to be racing in My Team. There's not going to be that individual like personalization to that. So it's just frustrating. There are a lot of nice changes in here, but there's nothing that stands out and goes, yes, this is the reason why this F1 game stands out from the rest. There's just a lot of nice little changes, but nothing that jumps out and grabs me and says, this is why you need to buy the game. Which is a shame. Right, I think I'll end this video off here. Let me know what you guys think of all the changes. Let me know what you think of the things that they didn't change, and some of the opinions I've brought forward about what I think about F1 25. Hopefully, I'm being fairly balanced. I'm not being too overly negative. I don't think I'm being overly positive. It's just the way that I feel about the way the game is at the moment. So next week, this time next week, we'll be talking about Breaking Point 3. So stay tuned for that if you want to see some more insight on that. But until then, that's it from me. See you next time.